morning everyone. Thank you for joining us. I hope you are enjoying our service so far. Apologies for my slightly dishevelled appearance. It's very hot and humid at the moment, and this is what happens when I'm hot and humid. But thank you for joining us, and we're going to continue today, and I'm going to continue today with our summer series, which is Encounters with Jesus. So we're just going to spend 10 minutes looking at an encounter with Jesus, and then hopefully it will give you something to go away and think about and to study on your own further in due course. The encounter that I've chosen is Jesus and the Roman Centurion. It's found in Matthew chapter 8. Let me read my notes, make sure that's true. It is Matthew chapter 8. Which has already been read for us beautifully, I might hasten to add. And when I looked at this, many people have summarised this passage, and I think it's a good way of summarising it, of faith in action. And today I very simply want to break down what I'm going to talk about into those two elements, faith and action. I'm going to look at what faith looks like in this passage, and how it appears, and then I'm going to look at how that faith was put into action. And because all good preachers contain three elements, I'm going to throw another one in there which I think is actually probably just as important, if not more important, which is how does Jesus react to this faith in action. We need to understand how Jesus reacts in this situation to get more about his character and know him. So the Roman centurion, he was obviously concerned about his servant. You know, he's got a servant who's supposed to be doing things for him, but he's paralysed. He can't do what the centurion needs to do, which I can imagine is a bit annoying for the centurion. You know, what's the point in a servant who is paralysed? I can imagine that the servant has almost lost any value to the centurion, but this centurion doesn't seem to see it like that. He doesn't discard his servant. He wants to help him. He seems to have a genuine concern about him. So he went and sought out Jesus, who he presumably had heard about, on the grapevine, about Jesus doing all these miracles and healing people. And so he went out and sought Jesus on behalf of his servant. Not for his own benefit, although I'm sure there was a little bit in there of, well, I need my servant. But he went out and his main concern was for his servant, and he went to find Jesus on behalf of his servant. So he gets to Jesus, and the first thing we notice is that Jesus offers to come to his house. It's a very simple beginning. He says, my servant is ill. He needs healing. Jesus says, do you want me to come and heal him? And I would react in that situation very differently to the centurion. I would be on my phone straight away. I'd be like, yes, the man of the moment, Jesus, he wants to come to my house. I'll be on the phone to Lou, get the kettle on, get some cakes in. What sort of food does Jesus like? Maybe a bit of fish, get some water. Maybe he'll turn that into wine, who knows? I joke on that one. It'll probably be posted all over social media. I would be like, yes, yeah, come to my house, yes, definitely. But the centurion reacts very differently, and he actually is very humble towards Jesus, and he says straight out, I don't deserve you to come to my house. He's very humble. But he says that in a way that follows after that, where he says, I don't deserve you to have my house. And then the next statement, I think, is wonderful. And he gives this demonstration of having a huge understanding of Jesus' authority over all things. He knows that Jesus doesn't have to be there, in person, physically present. He knows that all Jesus has to do is to say the word and his servant will be healed. And he uses his own example of the centurion, of being a centurion, having soldiers who work under him, and he says to those people, go and do this, and they'll do it, and they will obey. And at that instant, he's describing his understanding of how whatever Jesus says, he has so much authority. He has the divine authority. He has authority over all things and all creation. That all Jesus has to do is say to sickness, be gone. Or say to someone, be healed. And his faith is so strong that he understands that that's all it takes because of Jesus' authority. And the fact that he understands the authority that Jesus has shows he has a true understanding of who Jesus is. God in human form. You see, knowing that Jesus has the power to heal is one thing. But understanding why Jesus has the power to heal takes it to another level. The disciples were able to perform miracles, but they were only able to perform miracles in Jesus' name. It's Jesus who has the power and the authority. So it's one thing to have a faith, and as I said, we are just scraping the surface of this passage. And we see what the centurion's faith looked like. But faith at home isn't going to get you very far. If the centurion, we discover that the centurion has this faith, he has this understanding of who Jesus is and the power and authority given to him. But he also understands that that's all well and good having that faith in Jesus, but it's no good to him if he's just sat at home. What the centurion does is he acts on his faith. He knew Jesus could heal his servant, but his servant wasn't going to get healed unless he went and sought Jesus. Unless he went and sought an encounter with Jesus, what use was his faith at that moment in time? And something that struck me when I was reading through this, and one of the things I wanted to say was, it's interesting that when the centurion puts his faith into action, the very thing that he does is to go to the person who he has the faith in. He has faith in Jesus, so what does he do? He goes to Jesus. How often are we in situations like that where we believe Jesus can impart on that situation and we think, oh yeah, Jesus can do this, yeah. And then we try and go about solving it. We don't actually seek out Jesus and his will in that situation and ask him to come. It's very simply the very action that he does is to seek out the person he has faith in. Nothing else. He has a situation he would like to see changed. His will, the centurion's will, is that the servant is healed. He believes that Jesus can heal him. So what's the logical next step? It's to go and ask Jesus to heal him. It's often why prayer is so important, private prayer in our own lives, as well as communal care, but private prayer, that relationship with Jesus. Sitting there, having a conversation and going to Jesus and saying, taking time out of our busy lives and going and seeking Jesus, seeking an audience with him, seeking an encounter with him, conversing with him, talking with him, getting to know him, sharing our problems with him. It's so important, and it's something I struggle with my quiet prayer times and my reading of the Bible and the Word of God. But it is something that this has reminded me I need to try and persevere and be better at. We also live in a situation though nowadays where Jesus isn't physically present, and we can't physically go and grab Jesus. But isn't it great to know that in this passage we clearly see that the miracle Jesus doesn't physically have to be present for the miracle to happen. All that we need is for Jesus to say the word and it will happen. For Jesus' will to be acted out. He doesn't have to be with us. And that's why it's so important that with our faith we must act in it and seek out Jesus, seek out his Spirit. So, there's a little bit in the faith and actions we see in this passage from the Centurion's perspective. But let's look now at how Jesus reacts. How did Jesus react to the situation? And for starters, the passage tells us that Jesus was amazed. Now, I believe there are only 2 recordings in the Bible of Jesus being amazed, and they are 2 extremes. They are 2 opposites. There's this one that we've read about where Jesus is amazed at this person's great faith. And then the other one is found in Mark 6, where Jesus is amazed at their lack of faith. The 2 extremes. And in the Mark 6 passage, it says that Jesus couldn't perform any miracles due to their lack of faith. Here though, in Matthew 8 with the Centurion, Jesus is able to perform the miracle due to the great faith that the Centurion has. And we know that because he heals the Centurion, servant. He's healed. But in amongst Jesus' amazement, he also gives a warning. And in verses 11 and 12, Jesus talks, and the passage says, "From east and west many people will come, and they will take their place in the kingdom. But that subjects of the kingdom will be thrown out, and there will be crying and wailing and gnashing of teeth." And I found that a little bit hard to understand. I didn't quite understand what it meant to start with, so looking into it a little bit, it's clear that it would have made sense at the time to the other people that were around him while Jesus was having this conversation with the Centurion. And it's understood that the subjects of the kingdom is believed to refer to Jews, the Jewish people. And Jesus here is giving a warning that just because you're born into a situation doesn't guarantee that your seat at the table will remain. What he's saying here is that the only way to heaven and to guarantee that eternity with God is through faith in him. The only way to be reconciled with God is through Jesus. To enter back into that restored relationship that we've looked at before in CBCF, and the desire of God to get back to that place where we're in that relationship, walking with him as God created us to be, is through Jesus. Jesus' death on the cross was the ultimate sacrifice. He paid the price for us so that we could enter. He tore the curtain so we could go into God's presence. What a wonderful thing that is. You see, faith in Jesus is the only way to a truly fulfilled life, as we were designed and created to be. Now, I've only had time to scratch the surface of that passage, but thank you for listening. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you'll go away and reread this story of Jesus and the Centurion, and God will speak to you through it even more. But I think based on what I've read, it reminded me of another verse in the Bible. And I'm going to leave you with that on the screen. And it's from John chapter 14, verse 6. But God bless you and have a great week. Thanks.